Transparency group Project Veritas has exposed what it claims is a series of tools used by Facebook to target politically conservative pages and restrict their content without warning. Now, they include classing posts as hate speech, limiting live streams and suppressing the reach of those posts. That is a process known as de-boosting. Here is the whistleblower behind the claims.
I handled copyright and trademark claims. And in the course of doing my duties, I noticed other things that were going on accounts. And that is why I came forward. I would see it appear on several different conservative pages.
But what exactly did this former Facebook employee find? Our correspondent Nikki Aaron joined me more on that in the studio earlier. What has been revealed here?
Well, this whistleblower is alleging to have uncovered what she described as methods of suppression being used by Facebook, tools that would deboost the traffic of accounts considered to be of a conservative leaning, meaning that their followers wouldn't receive notifications whenever these pages, these accounts, update their profiles. In some cases, content was allegedly removed without even letting the users know. Now, this insider, who formerly worked in the intellectual property department of Facebook, just stumbled across these goings-on, she said, when she noticed some unusual goings-on with some accounts.
First, I was wondering whether this is something that I had, a couple working theories. I was like, maybe this is an independent versus mainstream thing. Maybe independent figures on the left are experiencing the same kind of deboosting. But I didn't see that. I looked at the Young Turks page. I looked at Colin Kaepernick's page. None of them had received the same deboost.
But she's not the only one that's coming out with similar allegations. There's another Facebook employee who has exposed how such tools are being applied to certain accounts that Facebook deems to be offensive or contain hate speech.
But all these... on the conservative side of things, Nikki.
Yeah, all
right?
these...
That's what she's pointing out, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff being said on the left that is not involved in these posts. Is that essentially what she's saying? It's all one-sided.
Exactly, and Facebook is tagging certain posts that it doesn't particularly like with terms such as offensive and hate speech,
right.
But these terms are being used really broadly.
Things that aren't actually hate speech, but that might offend somebody. Anything that is perceived as hateful, even though no court would define it as hate speech.
Now, if these allegations are proven to be accurate, it would be another blow for the Facebook name, especially seeing how it contradicts what the CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, told Congress when he said he didn't want his company acting on the political ideology of content. We have reached out to Facebook for a comment on these alleged deboosting tools. They haven't got back to us so far.
Yeah, he also said they were going to clamp down, though, didn't he, after the 2016 election? So it's conflicting kind of comments from Mark Zuckerberg. It seems his point would be, though, how do we know these claims are actually credible when they're going out into the press? It is a whistleblower. How do we know she's telling the truth?
Right, well, we do know that she definitely did work for Facebook because although Facebook didn't get back to us, they did respond to another media outlet who they told that she must have been a disgruntled former employee. So we know she definitely worked for them. And they say that she was fired when they found out she was working with Project Veritas.
What she brought out has been verified that this is happening on the conservative side of things. That's what we know.
Well, it wouldn't be surprising because it's not the first time a social media giant has been outed by Project Veritas as well. Last year we had the allegations with Twitter when Project Veritas released undercover footage of Twitter employee staff appearing to admit to silencing conservatives. They were saying how they used algorithms to bury particular tweets of certain users.
Thousands of them, weren't they?
Exactly. So users weren't seeing what these particular people were posting because they were being buried by these algorithms. Twitter at the time denied any complicity in the actions of its staff. But the most worrying thing here is that it exposes this impression that these social media giants like Facebook and Twitter that so many of us use pretty much on a daily basis could have political leanings, and that has serious implications for free speech.
20 years ago, Nikki, wouldn't have been that important because it didn't have so much import in the lives of young people. There's millions of people becoming voters, 16 and 18-year-olds, and they put a lot into social media. So this is why it's becoming a huge issue, isn't it? We're not going to hear the end of this for some time.
Indeed, the power of social media.
One example of how Facebook is clamping down is that it's banned British anti-Islamic activist Tommy Robinson from the platform, also Instagram as well.
When ideas and opinions cross the line and amount to hate speech that may create an environment of intimidation and exclusion for certain groups in society, in some cases with potentially dangerous offline implications, we take action. Tommy Robinson's Facebook page has repeatedly broken these standards, posting material that uses dehumanizing language and calls for violence targeted at Muslims. He has also behaved in ways that violate our policies around organized hate.
Well, his ban, Tommy Robinson, fired up his supporters online, complaining the move is a politically motivated step to censor free speech. Others praise the ban for targeting hate speech. Social media companies have been stepping up efforts to block content that's deemed offensive, but there's wide disagreement over just at what point online policing becomes censorship.
It's very clear that if you join these social media giant company pages and you set up your own page, then you have to abide by their rules and regulations. One, you don't peddle hate. Two, you don't tarnish and legitimize the racism and xenophobia towards just Muslims. I just think that's unacceptable. And the fact that you are called out for your hatred should be welcome.
This is censorship. The online world is the new public sphere, and it's wrong that major corporations like Facebook, like Instagram, have the power to remove opinions from public consideration, and him drawing attention to what he sees to be the radicalisation of Britain. And I don't agree with his position on that point, but I think the really worrying thing is that these arguments about Islam are now being pushed out of the public square into a sphere where they're not being challenged and not being considered. I think that inevitably brings with it certain obligations to stand up and defend freedom of speech.
Well, it's not about freedom of speech. I mean, with freedom of speech comes responsibility. So if you want to criticise and question Islam and Muslims, then that's okay in a free society. What isn't acceptable is to perpetuate the hatred towards one particular community, looking at the crimes of just one particular community, and then not expect there to be a reaction. So I'm really glad that these social media companies have woken up.
It's easy for people to now conclude that there is this mission on behalf of social media companies to edit and censor right-wing opinions out of the mainstream. You know, there's significant precedent for this now.
The idea that Facebook is silencing the far right is laughable. What Facebook is doing is saying, if you peddle hate and lies about a community, if you tarnish a whole community, if you advocate or encourage violence towards that community, then action will be taken, and that's what's been done.
I'm not someone of the right, but I recognise that that is a real problem, because it gives all of these individuals a chance to say that their arguments are too dangerous to hear. And if the public square is good for anything, it's good for challenging and dealing with arguments. And the more we try and push this underground, the more those ideas will go unchallenged. They'll reach people without interruption. They'll be communicated to people without having any contrary point of view put forward. And I think that is why censorship is always so dangerous.
I'm back with more news in 90 seconds' time.